All right, we are now live. My guest today is MK Davis. So let's just jump right in. So what got you started researching the subject of Bigfoot, MK?
Well, I kind of backed into it. I was into astrophotography, taking photos through a telescope of a space object, and I had learned quite a bit about film in those days, and things to do that rescue faint detail from film. I came across a couple of high quality frames from the Patterson film, and this was in the early days of the internet. It they kind of leaked out, and they were on the net. My experience told me that there you can't get a good frame like that from a bad film. That there had to be a better version that they showed than they showed on TV.
Right.
So I began an inquiry, and I said if I can get the better version, acquire them, and I could apply some of the things that I knew, that the film itself could probably tell its own story. So that's what I began to do. It began a kind of an odyssey, that once I, late one night at 2 a.m, I hit the preview button, and my jaw dropped. It was so clear, so good, and you could see the things that you recognize in everyday life. Muscular motion,
Oh yeah.
that type of thing, that would cause you not to ever doubt whether what you were looking at was real. So once I knew and it was cemented in my mind that it was real, then of course the questions come up about the nature of it. What are we looking at here? And so I began my inquiry expanded, and to this day I'm still looking into the matter.
Yeah, and you did a great job restoring it, bringing out details that no one else has ever really done. And it's thanks to you that we actually have the better quality videos and evidence to prove it is legit.
Right, that's what my goal was to provide. I hoped to replace the low quality version with the better quality, and people could look for themselves and make up their own mind about it. The film should be able to speak for itself without a lot of vouching. So if you see a silhouette, a black silhouette, which is essentially what the bad version showed you, you you could say it was anything or was nothing. But the better versions prevent that from happening. When you see it, you can see things on it that you can't really. You have to. It kind of narrows things down. Nobody doubts when they go into the street that they're looking at a real car coming.
Right.
There's things that you recognize to be real. And so when you get the film to that point, well, then people recognize that things that they see every day in life, the biomechanics of it, and so there's little doubt. So they move on to the next question: what is it? Excuse me.
Right. That's the ultimate question. And
Yeah,
you are
they,
right. You can see such details of the muscles moving. You can even see the butt crack. Obviously, it has breasts. Things that costumes back then just would not do. The details just they would leave out.
that's correct. That's correct. And I was able to dispel a lot of objections too that people had, and one of those was the fact that you could not see the butt crack. in the early days, they said, well, it looks like a pillow in a suit.
Right.
But if you saw the film in its proper quality, you could see that that definitely had glutes and there was cleavage and they moved independently, just like they do in life. So it's those each one at a time. All the objections have kind of fallen by the wayside. Now the only thing they got to object to is Patterson himself. You know, Patterson didn't pay his bills. He was a character, a shady person, and none of that holds water when it comes to film. And I try to tell people when I'm interviewed that a lot of times when I'm on the show, they'll counter after I'm through. They'll bring a skeptic in and let him talk. And I began to preempt that. I said, look, don't do it. Don't bring, if he don't have anything that's equal to what I have, then he should be shown the back door. This trying to destroy or damage this film by talking about Roger Patterson's character is for the bird. This film is too good. It doesn't matter. It don't care who took it.
Right.
It don't really matter. It does. We don't need Roger Patterson. We don't need anyone. The film is too good.
It speaks for itself. Definitely.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, and you brought some details out, like there's a braid in her hair and stuff, and
yeah, it's a little small one that has like a herringbone pattern that I would call a braid, definitely. And it shows even in the lower quality versions of it. It's just harder to tell, but the higher quality show exactly what it is. So that in and of itself is very telling, because anything that could weave or form a braid is obviously somewhere above the animal kingdom.
Oh, well above, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's what brings the next question is, what do you think they are? What do you think Patty is?
Well, just based upon what I've seen, and like I said, I'm not an expert on. I'm not an anthropologist or anything like that, but I am a logical person, and she's clearly not us. She's too gargantuan. We don't build that kind of muscle.
No.
If you look at people who live primitively, they're all thin, wiry, kind of gaunt, maybe. For her to have that kind of muscle build up, there's a different kind of metabolism, a different way of processing. And I've come to learn or realize over the years that a cubic inch of Sasquatch flesh weighs considerably more than a cubic inch of Homo sapiens.
Yeah, it's more dense.
It's way more dense. So I think some of the earlier researchers realized that. John Green offered $100,000 for anyone who could produce a track in that same substrate that deep. And the size didn't even matter. He said, if you can make a track that deep, and he realized that was, if you make a 3 or 4 inch track that deep and that type of sand, you have an enormous amount of density or weight.
Yeah.
So if she looks like she weighs 600 pounds, she's probably 1,200.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, but she is big. She looks big. I mean, the portions of her are wide and massive. I mean, she looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger on his best day.
If she stepped on your toe or your foot, you would crush your foot.
Yeah.
You would be lucky to save your foot. And that's why uh, the overall scheme of things, and different people talk about relationships with a Bigfoot. It's hard to be friends with something that massive. If
Yeah, especially if it doesn't want you to be around it or
well,
interact.
you're in danger, even if it likes you.
Right.
It could hurt you by just slapping you on the back. you
Yeah,
know, I mean,
that's right.
it's hard. You couldn't embrace it, or I mean, you'd have to stand at a distance, keep a space between you and it. It's too massive, too muscled up, too powerful. Uh, People talk about shooting them and kill them if they got lucky enough to kill one, which it would be kind of doubtful. It would have to be a very powerful gun and then a lucky shot or a shot to the head or something. But the muscle mass is so great that it will absorb an impact and not penetrate to the vital organ.
Yeah, Class 3 is North American big game, and Class 4 is African game, and I'm pretty sure they're probably in between somewhere. Maybe a Class 4 thick skin African game.
Right, you'd have to have an African type of gun.
Yeah, or high powered rifle to the head,
yeah,
but
yeah, Weatherby or something like that.
yeah.
But irregardless of that, you're probably not going to succeed.
No, you would never probably get a beat on it. It'd be too fast. I hear that a lot of people think that they're apes. I think that they're more native, just a different type of person. Because, apes, they're not that smart. And again, apes don't braid their hairs. And,
Well, just like we were talking about, they're not us, in my opinion. They're not Homo sapiens.
right, there's
I
something, but they're like a
Homo,
hominin.
yeah, a hominid. What's his name? Igor Bortsev, the Russian
Yeah, the
researcher,
Russian scientist.
told me that hominid is not the proper name for it because hominid includes us. He said
Right.
homin, or hominin. I'm not sure how he says it. Ends with an N. Is
Yeah.
excludes Homo sapiens, and it includes almost everything else that has. They pull these skulls out of the ground and they say, well, this is a 130,000-year-old skull. It's got brow ridges, uh, sloping forehead, receding chin, and they call it Homo something. I think it's something like that. Maybe not a perfect example of one of these skulls, but something like that it has not perished,
Right.
and that it still has a population in various places.
How many do you think there are in North America?
That's a good question. Uh, People argue about there has to be a viable population. I don't know what's viable or something like that. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
they're reported in most states and every
Hold on.
province in Canada. And
I've got a cold and I'm sniffling. You have to excuse me.
oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
Um, they when you're talking about unknowns,
Yes.
where the metabolism is clearly not the same. We don't know their life expectancy. We don't know gestation periods. All of that's unstudied.
We really don't know anything.
Well, the only thing we really know is that they're not us. They're
Right.
not Homo sapiens.
And they have some sort of intelligence.
Right. They have actually the intelligence appears to be in the areas that that's meaningful to them. It's
Yes.
superior to ours. They don't do the things that we do. They don't manufacture things. That type of thing. But not that they're not capable of it. I talked to the Hoopas, and the Hoopas said that they were dealers, that they they used to trade with them, and they couldn't keep it up because they were so unreliable and unethical.
Yeah, I heard the same thing of I don't know where, but the natives would help weave baskets for them, and then they ended up stealing kids, so they stopped trading with them. They stopped making baskets for them because they would always end up stealing the kids.
Yeah, it was something similar that what I heard from the Hoopas that they just broke off the relationship, and eventually, white men came with their guns,
Yep.
and that scared them, and they went into the high country. So you didn't have a lot of interaction after that. But prior to that, they did trade with them and saw them off. So they were considered to be a gigantic version, type of human, or that's the way they looked at them. They spoke a language.
Right.
It wasn't entirely understandable, but there was enough similarities that they could do the trading. But they preferred to steal. They would come twice a year for the salmon run and steal, get them out of the net, eat them raw.
Yep.
And of course, the Hoopas and the Yurok and Karuk, they were all three in an area right there in Northern California. And they didn't care for that. That was their livelihood. And so they didn't see them in a very positive light, even if they didn't steal or steal people or women or children.
Right.
It's almost what you would imagine it would be if someone told you that 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 some Homo erectus was living out there, like a science fiction movie. They don't meld good with modern man, and so you end up with a lot of problems. And some of the problems get serious. Uh, so if even some of the people who've written about the Hoopas, like David Pilates wrote a book about them,
Right. Yep.
where they detailed they got Harvey Pratt, a forensic artist, to draw them, and it really irritated a lot of the ape theorists that they drew them to be so human looking. But
Right. They look like a giant Indian.
yeah, there's a reason for that. You get away from Bluff Creek area, they become more brutish looking, and the ones that are in the Bluff Creek area, I believe personally, are hybrids. That at one time in that area, in the 1840s on, they were Chinese, and there were about 10,000 Chinese living in hydraulic mining, gold, and they had their families with them. They were all undocumented, and they ended up, a lot of them did go missing, children, women, you know. So the opportunities for a true giant Bigfoot, purebred Bigfoot, to kidnap and have intercourse and have a viable offspring went way up. It's almost nil because it's not a very successful thing. The two aren't really that compatible, but they're close enough.
Right.
And if they try it 100 times, they may get get a woman to carry a baby.
Yeah, there are stories of that in a number of places. I remember in the Southwest. I can't. I don't want to get it wrong. I don't know if it was the Apaches or one of those said that they would actually marry off women to a brutish 5 foot tall Sasquatch type ones, and they would go and get married, and they would have kids. And
yeah, well, some of these kidnapped women would return with pregnant or with a child if they were able to get away. And this happened. There was a gentleman here who a guy named Ed Fuchs. This was a really smart guy. He had about 5 degrees in various things, and he's more known for metallurgy than anything. But he did a study of the Colville Indians on the Colville Reservation in Washington State, and they had someone living amongst them that was the offspring of a Sasquatch union.
Wow.
This is the name of the book. You can see it.
Yeah, they walked among us.
Yeah, Stick Indian to the Coast. It's got the whole entire account of this. And interestingly enough, the guy was very intelligent with weird looks. And he died an early death. Just didn't live a long life. I think 35 or something like that. But he's
Right.
real smart businessman, and he's done well in business. I think his name was Michael. But anyway, he was the offspring of Sasquatch. And this is one of the few accounts that even willing to talk about that. But the Indians consistently across the board, across tribes, across territories, they all speak of that occurring.
Yes, they do.
And they don't throw children away. This guy was of a diminutive size. He was instead of being large, he was actually short stature and small. So he was. I don't know if you know too much about hybridization, but
yeah, it's whatever you pull out of the bag is what you get.
Right. Well, it's like a liger. You've ever heard of the hybridization between a lion and a tiger? Depending on which one is the father, it can be the largest cat in existence. Almost a third bigger than the parent, or it can be a little small thing. It depends on which one is the parent. Which one is the father. Is it is the tiger the father, or is the lion the father? And if you could see, go online and see the pictures of the huge.
Yeah, they are.
And if you can imagine something like that occurring in a hybridization type of thing, and it's not out of the bounds of reason either, because they're both homo something. You see, there is a similar basic DNA with enough differences that it's not a good match.
Right.
They may if you've got a 10,000 people living, you might get 1 in 100 that works. But if you boost that to thousands of opportunities, then over a long period of time, you're going to get a population of hybrids. And that's kind of what the Hoopas told me they were. There weren't really any more of the original Bigfoot giants really living in the Bluff Creek area. So if you look at Patty, if you look at the high quality industry, her hair is scant. It's very patchy, and it doesn't look like well kept or anything like that, or even that it grew well. So if you look at the Paul Freeman footage, which I believe that to be just as authentic.
Oh yes.
It's a more even coverage, longer hair, body hair, more even, and it's bigger, and it walks differently. It walks with an up and down lumbering motion, and
right.
And Patty walks with that smooth, fluid gait, and I think that's because of the sapien element there. So you're going to find different amounts of hybridization in that area too. You're going to see some that have more hair, some that have a lot less hair, some that may have no hair, nobody. There was a bear hunter that put his scope on a group of what he calls Sasquatch. He said some of them were hairy and some of them were completely naked. So that was a group of hybrids, hybridization, where it can come either way. It can happen.
Yeah, and have you heard of crypto reality down in Florida?
No, I have.
They got a lot of stuff of faces and stuff, and there's a lot of individuals that look drastically different from each other. Some look like a hominid, kind of more ape looking, and others look like they have a white man's nose, and they more square jaw.
Right.
They,
Some
they have
people say I couldn't shoot him because he was too human looking. Well,
right.
that would
You always hear that.
Like Patty, But if you move over to the Freeman footage, it's a lot less human looking, a lot more brutish.
Yes.
And probably a lot more dangerous. They tend to be more aggressive. They leave a footprint that's hourglass shaped with the toes all moved forward on the end of the foot. And that's a true giant Bigfoot, purebred Bigfoot. But if it's got a footprint like Patty, which has the appearance of being a large version of our feet, that's the hybrid, and you're probably a lot safer with a hybrid around than you are with something like the Freeman. If I found a track like the Freeman footage, I would go the way I came, because there's a lot of reasons for it. They will hurt you. They're just not nice. That's why they took women.
Right, and that could being a hybrid, it could have tamed them down having our genetics in them.
Yeah, it seems to. They tend to just walk away. The ones there in that Bluff Creek area tend to be not dangerous. But if you walked upon the Paul Freeman, if you watch what happens to him, it stares at him. It was sizing him up. He talked to himself, and that's what the Hoopa said. If you encounter a Bigfoot, talk to it in whatever language you know, and at the same time walk away or back away. And the reason for that is it's confusion. It's unsure if you're alone or not. And if you listen to Paul Freeman, he's steadily talking to himself. It's not that he knew that, but it's just kind of a natural thing for him. He's talking to the camera.
Yes.
And the Bigfoot is thrown off by that. And that's why it didn't do anything. It just stared at him. It thought about it, but then it moved on. So good for him.
Yeah, and what great footage that is. And when he gets into, I think it's a pine tree, and he turns a little bit. He's massive. I remember seeing that first, and I was just in awe of how massive it was.
And people condemned it when he first took it because it wasn't like the Patterson subject.
Right.
But there's genetic reasons why it was. It wasn't in an area where there were 10,000 Chinese fast. So the Bigfoot giants they never hybridized with anything. It's a purebred creature. So he's lucky to have survived the encounter. Is what I think. And so we got that fantastic footage.
Yeah, that's right. And so I would assume then the more north you go, the less hybridization would occur because it's more remote.
Yes, that's correct. If it's around a lot of people, and the people have been there, that this interfacing that's taken place over. It takes long periods of time, even if there's 10,000 people. It
right.
takes because it's mostly failed. So You know, if some undocumented person, this woman, is taken and then raped, and she gets away, fortunate enough to get away, she probably is not going to have a child. But every so many of them might. You know, it's enough closeness there that you could get some success here and there. And then
Right.
once you get it going, you know, once you have a hybrid, well, if that hybrid meets another hybrid or that hybrid meets another woman, you know, the chances go up
Yep.
for that human element there, you know. So you end up with, in Northern California, in the Bluff Creek area, you end up with a lot of hybrids at various stages of hybrid.
So that's going to bring me to my next subject is Lovelock Cave.
Okay.
And the story is that the Paiutes went to war with the Giants around that area for thousands of years, if I believe that. And eventually they cattled the remaining ones into the cave, set it at the entrance on fire, and shot arrows as anyone came out. And later, the white man came over, dug up the bat guano, and started finding skeletons, duck decoys, which are among the oldest in the world, with feathers still attached. And that lake has been dried out for, I think, a couple thousand years or so, I believe.
Well, you know, it's cycles. It's over long periods of time that it does that. I'm trying to see. I have the actual account. Uh,
Yeah, I was kind of paraphrasing and skipping.
yeah, I have the actual account that I got from the Paiute. They typed it up for me, but it's in a stack of papers here.
Well, my question to you is they're described as red haired giants, and they had technology, decoys and stuff, and nets. Do you think they were separate from Bigfoot, or they are the same, and civilization collapsed and went wild?
Um, I'm not a little unsure about that. I know that they originally came from the Humboldt. They came down the Humboldt River from the mountains there in Northern California. They came down as a group, a clan, and they were bad to the bone.
Yes.
I guess I could find that thing. I wish I had known. I would have known.
I think a number of people, I would assume, know the story. It's pretty famous.
Yeah,
Um,
well, it's a little more added to it if you
yeah.
read their account of it. Um, it wasn't just the Paiutes; it was all the other clans that had an interest in it. You know, around there, they all. It was a desperation type of thing. I don't think they wanted to war with them, but it was. There was no reasoning with them,
Right.
and they were killing people as a food source.
Yep.
The Paiutes call them Numa Tikutas, which meant people eaters.
Yes.
Uh, they tended to name a group of people after what they were known to eat. The Paiutes themselves, Paiute is a white man's name, but
Uh,
they call themselves Kuptikutas, which meant squirrel eaters. Uh, so they call these people eaters because they would dig holes and make traps and trap people at night, kill them, eat
wow.
them. You know, so that you can't tolerate that.
No.
People that live primitively, uh, an offspring, a life, it's so important for the continuation of the tribe. I mean,
That's
you just
right.
can't take loss, you know. And these people, it was going to be one or the other. One of them had to go, and
Yeah.
society banded together. They had help with other nations. They came. They these things, people, whatever they were, they made reed boats, and they were out on a reed platform, floating platform. And this was the last of them. This was after I don't know who knows how many years of war.
Yeah, I think it's thousands of years.
So they had the last few hundred of them, or maybe less than that, out there on this reed boat. And they wouldn't let them come to the shore. They would meet them everywhere they tried to disembark,
Yeah.
and they were starving. And so finally, they just made a dash for it at night and made it to Lovelock Cave. Went in there. I gathered up in front of them, and they tried to reason with them. Don't it doesn't have to end this way.
Yeah, they called out into the cave, but they got no answer.
They did an odd thing. Uh, they would throw wood into the mouth of the cave to burn. They were going to set it afire.
Hmm.
The the giant ran over there and got the wood and neatly stacked it. Uh, like an obsessive compulsive thing. Like they didn't understand the gravity.
Huh.
They were going to. They saw it as a resource. You know,
Oh,
it,
yeah.
so uh, in Emery Strong's book, I have that book here. Emery Strong is not a Bigfooter. He wrote a book called Stone Age in the Great Basin, and he talked about Lovelock Cave. This would be the book. It's out of print. It's 1963, I think, is when he published it. But he said that they found a bundle of arrows that you make a flaming arrow. It's bundled that you
Yep.
bundle around the end of your chest, and it was burned. And he made the comment as if from a siege of long ago, and that was right up the way the story was told.
That's right.
And of course, now I went in there in 2013. I went in there with Don Monroe. We found this giant handprint. I was very shocked because I'd been in there before. And what essentially happened was that the BLM, Bureau of Land, had decided to build an observation deck inside the cave.
Yeah.
And in doing so, they leveled the bat guano. They brought what was on the end to the middle to get it all level, and uncovered this handprint. And it wasn't an artistic handprint; it was an actual hand. It was tappy, the same stuff that was on the roof of the cave: fat, soot, uh, the product of heat, fire, cooking flesh, uh, and some whoever owned that large hand stuck it in there that while it was in a soft form and put it on that rock. And when they pulled it off, they left these little taffy pull ridges up each finger.
Wow.
These little. Uh, so I knew that it was an actual hand that did it. This hand was 18 inches wide.
Whoa. That's huge.
That's really hard.
Yeah.
Uh, so Don and I, we talked about what to do about it. We went to a McDonald's. I had my laptop and I got on their Wi-Fi. I said, Don, the best thing we can do is publish that it's there, because if we don't, somebody's gonna find it. It's a public cave, and so we did, and it lasted until November, and then somebody literally removed the entire face of that rock.
I wonder
Don't,
who.
don't know who did it, but we were fortunate enough that we got another guy, called him from California and told him about it. And he got a friend, and they came over and fully documented it. So it's not just me, that has pictures. Also, him, and he's got video and still photos. So there's a little fraternity of people who actually laid eyes on it.
Right.
A giant handprint, and there it was in that cave. Where that legend talked about.
Didn't you also see the skulls
Yeah,
in the museum that they have?
I didn't. I've seen those skulls that were in the cabinet down below, and I took photos of them. But I believe them to be Paiute skulls. They're caved in, been executed.
Right.
There was one that was in there that's been gone for a long time, but it was photographed about over 40 years,
right.
and a good photographs were taken, and it was one of the giants out of Lovelock Cave. It had the back guano stains all over it. It was probably double the size of a regular skull, and it had a double row of teeth on the top,
Yes.
not the bottom.
Not the bottom, huh?
The bottom they were overcrowded, but they weren't double rows. The one on the top was actually a double row. And it was, I'd say it was double. It had a upturned chin. In other words, if you took the mandible and just set it on a flat surface, it would rock like a rocking chair.
Oh, okay.
And that is distinctly Polynesian in origin. Now ask yourself what a Polynesian giant would do in Lovelock Cave.
Yeah.
Kind of goes back to the Reed boat.
Well, obviously they learned it from somewhere.
They learned it from somewhere, exactly. So we're looking at something that's in the very far past, and there were survivors up until the Paiute had their encounter with them. They were living in the mountains, but they came out of the mountains, came down that river. So are they Bigfoot? Possible. I don't know. But I do know that skull was Polynesian in heritage. It may not itself have come from Polynesia, but it had an ancestry that traced back there. Polynesians are the only ones who had the rocker jaw, they call it.
Right, and they traveled all over the Pacific.
They were big travelers, courageous. Yeah. I mean, they had those. They built those large birds with the stabilizers on either side.
Yep.
The floats. They weren't anywhere a Polynesian would go. If he had an ocean to go. So those are the things that need looking into. I think sometimes that maybe perhaps we pay people to explain our world to us, and
right.
The academics, they're all on the public dollar, most of them, and sometimes we don't get our money's worth.
No, or things are covered up on purpose.
We don't need people that will deliberately get in, an inquiry. No, we need people that are willing to look under some rocks.
And the truth should be the number one goal in finding anything. You want to find the truth and express it, not cover it up and lie.
Well, how else are you going to learn? I mean, those are things that in the distant past that we're left with only scant trail to examine. And we need to kill people that that are open-minded enough
That's
to,
right.
to do those investigations, not get it. So maybe as time goes by and older generations fade away and you wouldn't come along, you get that openness,
I hope so, because
willing to look into it.
yeah, because you heard all throughout the 1800s. Before that, the Smithsonian was finding giant bones all across the country and confiscating them. Even Abraham Lincoln at the Niagara Falls gave a speech about the giants gazing upon the same falls that they did now.
Right. Well, he was aware of it, but
Yeah,
it wasn't too many years after him that you didn't hear any more about it.
right.
Just, it was just smothered.
Yeah, because they were finding them in mounds. People call them the mound builders. We have up in Michigan, we have copper mines that are very unique to the region. And when during the Bronze Age, you need lots of copper to make bronze. They tested some bronze stuff and found that the quality of copper could only have came from northern Michigan. Now,
Right.
how did it get all the way half across the other side of the world? And who were the people mining the copper mines? The mound builders and
Well, here where I live, there's a river called the Pearl River, and since you're into this subject, you probably know it more for the Honey Island down
oh
at the
yeah,
southern end of it, where the Honey Island swamp monster is alleged to live. But further, a little further south before you get to the actual coast, there was a lady whose backyard went up against the Pearl, and she found these big stones, just barely under the ground. She was digging and found them some way. They were anchor stones, and they had holes drilled in them. They had writing on them, and the writing was Phoenician.
mm,
And they think some of the more critically thinking people think that they mistakenly came up in that river thinking it was the Mississippi because it's really close,
right.
and they were receiving copper in
Mm,
way back when. The Phoenicians are another group that was not afraid to go ocean. Uh, so they kind of think maybe that that's what they were doing there. They had camped and waited for copper to be barged down the Mississippi, and never came because they weren't on the Mississippi.
right.
So, but they think that's what they were doing. Uh, and we see that occasionally across the length and breadth of the country, where people that not supposed to be there were clearly there. The
Yes.
Kensington stone, excuse me, it was authenticated by Scott Walter, an expert in patinas and stuff. That aging, getting the correct age. And I talked to him personally, and he said that no question that was an authentic stone. So there were Vikings
Yes.
in the interior in your area.
Yeah, and they find Roman coins. They found, I think, a Roman sword. It was in an offshoot off the Mississippi to west. They found it. I can't remember what state, but
They
they're
found
finding artifacts that don't belong here.
they found a coin. A guy named Tommy Smith, a big metal detector, and he's passed away now, but he lived around here. And he found a coin, Humphreys County, Mississippi, that had Athena on it. It was a Greek coin. It was way on,
Yeah.
totally unexplained. He was
Yeah.
offered 40,000. I don't know if he sold it or not. But what was it doing here? And you know what the academic theory was?
No,
That a bird swallowed it in Greece. It flew over here and pooped it out.
that don't make no sense. It would
No,
have. First of all, how long does it take to get from Greece to here for a bird? Right, more than a day, I would assume.
it's
So
not going to feel a lot like flying, swallowing a coin anyway.
no, and it's going to be out of his system way before he gets here.
So yeah, it's why not believe that somebody from Greece came? They had boats.
Yeah, and during
You
the
know?
Bronze Age, they're looking for copper, doing the trading. I mean,
So
who knows?
those are the mysteries that all of that deserves a good, solid, uh, some academic exploration. You
Oh
know,
yes, yes.
without a dead end, without dead ending. And so, uh, the same problem. The reason why that coin did not garner international attention, uh, it's the same reason why Bigfoot does not get in the book.
Yeah,
Where should have Patterson been? Should have put Bigfoot in the book. Not yet.
yeah. It has to change so many theories about history, about evolution that I don't think they want to accept it. They would have to change the history books for so much.
Well, they shouldn't have a choice.
You're right, exactly. The truth is the
So,
truth, and that's what should be.
right, there's no two sets of truth.
Yeah,
All theories are ways of getting at the truth.
that's right.
A theory, you formulate theories and you whittle them down and you test them and you hone them down until you're left with a handful of facts that are indisputable.
Yep,
And so when you have that, then should that should go on record.
that's
Uh,
right.
and and so I remember the coin being in the paper, front page of the Yazoo Herald. Never made it beyond. Should have.
Right.
When you have something like the Patterson Bigfoot footage, it should it should have turned anthropology on its ear.
Right. I've heard. Can't remember his name, but he goes out and tries to find extinct animals. He's found a few, I think, and he said that basically there was a population of moose that got in New Zealand, and the hunters took them all down. Well, there's a photo of one, and the scientists won't accept it because it's just a photo. They need an actual body or something, even though it's a moose.
Well,
They
I mean,
won't accept it.
a photo is not in totality.
Right.
It's two dimensional. That's the problem. The video's much better. If you got video, good video, over an extended time, not just a flash, but it can be used to authenticate.
Yeah.
And they use it in court all the time to condemn people.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know, uh, so if yeah, and animals that are either extinct or animals that, like the ivory bill woodpecker, that they do have. It was, in the 20th century there were some ivory bills.
Yep. I remember that story.
Now,
Yep.
now they can't find any of them, and so it's been declared extinct 3 times.
Right.
So do you really think it's extinct? I say the likelihood probably pretty low, but it it's it 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 could be extinct, but it's probably not. They know the reason why. There were not a lot of ivory bills at the time that the Europeans first came here. And not a lot of people know this, but Native Americans had decimated the ivory bill. It was such a beautiful bird and easy to get out of the nest. You climb a tree, and they made these wonderful, beautiful belts,
Yeah.
ivory bills, and so they didn't reproduce that well. And so began to go, be hard to find, rare. And the last one that was documented was not far from me, over in Louisiana. Singer Sewing Machine Company had a little piece of land, and there was a tree that had babies in it, and a game ward called Cornell University, and they came down and they went up there and got babies out and banded them. And they sat below with recorders and recorded the parents and filmed them and took good pictures. Even took the baby and put on their shoulder. And then when they took it back up, put it back in the nest, and 2 weeks later, Singer cut everything down.
Wow.
They were gone.
Yeah.
I guess we do sewing machines, but how bad?
Yeah, it is sad because every day or every year they say hundreds of species go extinct. Some and many we have not discovered yet, but we're always discovering new species though too. I mean,
Yeah, that's true. The Earth is flux. We don't. That's why I say we don't know everything there is to know.
yeah,
We don't. We don't want to go extinct as a people. We know that we could because whole entire species have in the past for reasons that are fully understood. Uh, so we as an intelligent creation, we everything we do is with a view to not going extinct. You know,
yeah,
we procreate to the point where we have 7 billion people. That you just had a couple of thousand, it could happen really.
yeah, and it actually has almost a few times during the span of human history.
I think they got down to they estimate 8,000 for volcanoes went off and this,
Yep, yep,
this happened and that happened. But it you can get eliminated off of this earth. It's mortal, and no matter how smart you are, there's too many things that occur that are beyond your control.
that's right.
But we want to do the right thing by whatever we have control over. So if it's Ivory Bill or if it's a Bigfoot with a braid in front of it, we want to do the right thing.
Yeah, well, I think most of us do. I think some don't.
It's patently wrong to allow something to go extinct with making no effort,
Yeah.
to ignore the problem.
It is our responsibility because we have transformed the world beyond anything it has seen, and it is our responsibility to take care of it.
Yeah, and Bigfoot. People argue that they could probably get along without us. Maybe that's probably true, but they, I don't know how well we could do without them. We are a type of creation that we thrive on knowing our environment. I mean, if we send expeditions all the time, look, so we don't do well. We don't thrive unless we're intellectually stimulated and
That's right.
emotionally stimulated, and that's why we keep our journals and we write down things and we put out the effort, to document it, and we are that's kind of a godly thing, like in God's image. Uh, I'm sure God know whoever God is knows exactly if He has a journal of some kind or a perfect. Uh,
Yeah.
so we kind of are like that in the same way. We so we don't want to let Bigfoot, if Bigfoot does exist, we want to establish that fact, and then if we are able to establish that fact, then we want to document, exactly what they are, what's their nature, what is their prospect, you know,
Yeah.
what are the problems that are going to exist if we go and build a interstate highway through Northern California or do something else, up in the Himalayas. We want to know. Uh,
Yeah.
so we educate ourselves. Just think that's what we're doing here. The whole problem of researching a Bigfoot is to educate ourselves.
Yeah, and you know what? It's really going to take like a Jane Goodall sitting down with a group of them and actually having the hardcore interactions and actually filming it. And I think that's, other than a body, that's probably the only way
Well, I
to.
don't know that a body would. I think the Jane Goodall approach is probably, if you brought a body in, strange things happen and they disappear, or either
Yeah.
they say it's a freak of some kind. But Jane Goodall approach sounds good to me. If you could pull it off, then there's people who claim uh, that they could interact with them. What do you call them? Bigfoot.
Yes, they gift in and they have gifting in return. And
Well, that's all good, but it's proof's in the pudding. You know,
right, exactly. And
if you come back and said that you took a bath with them and, and, and played Parcheesi, well, that's just your story. You know, get some good video of it, and we'll believe that. We'll believe that.
yes, because you can analyze video, you can analyze audio, you can
Yeah.
analyze tracks, you can analyze hair. You can't. A story is just a story, but you got to have proof that can be, verified and tested and come to the conclusion.
Well, that's the Patterson film is like that. The great images like of that skull that was taken 40 years ago. Oh my. That it tells you uh, just a plethora of things. You can see that its heritage was Polynesian. You can see the double row. That's documentation of what people have been saying. You can
Yes.
see the guano stains all over it. Uh, they did a little repair work. It had an elongated skull. The skull was large to the back, to the rear.
Right.
They kind of used a little plaster and installed tape and kind of repaired it. But the front was untouched. You might have seen that. Have you seen
I,
it?
I think there's old pictures of it online.
Yeah, there's some pictures.
Yeah.
This would be a color photo. It's down in the basement. It's mounted on a pedestal. It's got a little pedestal mount.
Right.
If you go to that same museum and you ask them about it, they'll say it never was here. We don't know what you're talking.
Yes, and they show you the normal skulls that are kept in back.
Show you the Paiute skull, but they don't
Yeah.
even show you those. They say they have no skull.
That's what I've heard recently. Is they claim they don't have them.
So I've got pictures of the Paiute skulls. And, I've got the photograph, the actual photograph of the giant skull. I've got it in a safe.
Yes. And it
So
is robust. It
it's
looks
big.
like pretty dense chin.
It's beside. I got a picture of it beside normal skull.
So, if we still got time. If you want, as long as you're good. Um, what do you think about the elongated skulls they found down South America and stuff?
I got a good friend, Ron Moorhead. He looked into that quite a bit. There's, of course, head binding is old. Uh,
Right, but they have different suture lines than regular humans.
right. That they've also found some fetuses that had long skulls.
Yep.
They weren't head. They were found. In the mummified.
Yep.
Uh, died at birth or whatever. They didn't have time to find their skull. So what is that? That goes back to what academics got to say about it.
Well, they all said that it's just head binding.
That, that's that's explaining it away.
It doesn't explain the suture lines.
Right, it does. You're going to theorize or come up with something that explains all of it.
Exactly.
You got to have it. You got to explain it, or you should want to anyway. If it's a human or humanoid, if it's you should have an intense interest if you're an anthropologist.
Yeah, it would be like the biggest discovery ever.
Beating the door down on that museum.
Exactly.
I just think that they like to get up and go drink coffee and not do anything.
Yeah, they're getting paid to follow the storyline, I think, and they just do it. They accept it. I know there are some people down there that are actively studying it, and they are trying to bring it to light.
It's somebody that's interested in esoteric. It's not really an academic looking at it. Academics, I understand they can get in trouble, but they should not. The system should not be set up to where anyone could get in trouble for exploring something that's odd and unusual.
Exactly.
They should not. Their career should not be at risk. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
You should be able to look into it and ask questions and go examine it, form a theory, anything you want to. That's academic freedom.
Exactly.
So we got a lot of repair work to do to the academic system of things.
Yeah, and we won't progress. I mean, we're going to always be stuck in the same bubble if we never, accept the truth.
Yeah, that's true. So, all the way back to, you see how the subject of Bigfoot has connotations that expand out far beyond the subject matter, because our entire world is affected by our methodology. How are we going to learn anything if it's not allowed,
right?
Not tolerated? So if there's nothing else that comes from Bigfoot inquiry, it should be at least prying open the doors to learning, and not be so stuck that you can't won't allow it or can't be allowed,
right,
to do the proper inquiry.
I think, like you said, like the old guard is dying, and we have a bunch of new people who are more accepting to it. We found the Hobbit of Indonesia, and they're finding more hominids, and they are accepting it. So I think there'll be a day where they will finally accept Bigfoot. When we actually have truth.
The Hobbit, if it had been found under a different time period, it might have ended up in the basement of the Smithsonian.
Yeah, I truly believe that.
The Smithsonian has 18,000 Native American skeletons in their storage field. What do you need 18,000?
Right, that's just beyond
they were all collected by a man named Alastair Lisa, their first anthropologist, who was not an anthropologist. He tried to get on with the Smithsonian by claiming to be a doctor, and they found out that he was just a doctor of homeopathy. So they didn't hire him. So he goes back over to Bohemia, where he originally came from, and he comes back with this certificate of anthropology. Nobody knows what school they have over there that has anthropology, but it's kind of like come to my lab and see what slab and see what's on my slab. You know,
Right.
uh, he just showed up with it. They still didn't hire him, so he goes to the American Museum and volunteers to dig for no pay, and then he gets experience, and then he goes back to the Smithsonian and they hire him in a low level position, and then he just backstabbed until he steps on everybody ahead of him, goes straight to the top. And
Yeah.
he's the closest guy you ever saw to Dr. Frankenstein. Uh, he would, he's the one who formulated the land bridge. Uh,
Okay.
this is a man who pretended to have a degree, and he would go to Aleutian Island and bulldoze up graves. Even they weren't ancient; they were modern graves. People, their descendants were right there, crying and bawling.
Yeah.
Uh, and he would take them down to. That's part of his collection. He collected 18,000 Native American
Yeah, because
skeletons.
there was no rules, and now you can't even dig into a burial mound, or you will get in trouble.
The Smithsonian is the only people that are excluded from the repatriation. They don't have to return.
Yeah.
Uh, so I remember reading about him. Uh, he There was some kind of uh, skirmish or war down in Mexico, and a lot of people were killed. A lot of civilians were killed. He went down and were taking the body and bringing them back. Uh, and he had this lady's little baby, and she kept crying. And finally, he got fed up with her and just threw the baby out into the middle of the road. Uh, that's the kind of person that he was.
Yeah.
So if the guy they have there now, Stanford, I believe he is, I believe that he is doing a lot of good work and a
I
lot of
hope so.
yeah. He's repairing a lot of the damage done
I was
down
gonna say because they have a very bad reputation.
there. Yeah. Uh,
Very bad.
I'm a lot less apprehensive about him than I was, you know, up until this time. They've had some real big. Uh, so they're still proud of Alicia. They got a bust of him, a bronze bust of him. But it's like looking at Dr. Frankenstein and all
Yeah.
the Native Americans, all the ones that travel the anthropological circles, know him. Uh, he's like a horror movie to them. Uh, I, uh, I could tell you some more stories about Ishi, the last truly wild Indian, things that happened. Smithsonian ended up with his skull, and they wouldn't admit it. And he believed that if he wasn't all whole when he died, that he wouldn't go to the afterlife.
Right. And
And
yeah, they desecrated a lot of stuff. A lot of people had different beliefs, and they just desecrated it all.
there was a guy named Oren Starn who was a anthropologist, and he was researching Ishi, and he found uh, Alfred Kroeber's correspondences with the Smithsonian, where he had sent the skull, Ishi's skull, against his wishes to the Smithsonian. So he turns that information over to the Indians, and they demand to have it back for reburial. They wouldn't admit that they had it. Then they produced the correspondences, and then they found the skull. I mean, it was his head.
Right.
They found it floating in a vat with 35 other heads. And does that sound like? You got to remember that the Smithsonian is not scientific; it's a collection. It's a
Right. I mean, it's what it
collection.
is. It's basically
Yeah,
a private collection.
yeah. So think about that. If you find Bigfoot,
I
hard
I
about what
yeah.
you do with it.
I don't know. I thought if I ever came across a dead one that I would basically take the head, and then go, go to the news and tell a bunch of people, videotape, and just send it to the web. That way they can't erase it.
Yeah, have 500 people come and see it at one time, where it could be, hit. Uh, yeah, it's so they don't have a track record of trust. Uh,
No.
but I will say that the guy Stanford is doing a much better job. He's turned around on a lot of the views, the dead end views that they had. He recognized somebody brought him a tusk, a mammoth tusk that they found. Not mammoth, but mastodon down in Florida, and on that tusk was carved a scene of them killing the mastodon, of paleo people killing the mastodon. They carbon
Wow.
dated the tusk, and it went way past what they said that humans live here.
Right, and they just, yeah.
Now, the old Alice Terlisca would have thrown it in the Atlantic Ocean, but
Yeah.
Stanford put it in the book. So, to his credit,
That is good.
yeah.
Well, we went past our hour a little bit. I think I think it's a good time to shut it down. I'd like to have you back on. You're very knowledgeable, and I think we could definitely do another hour, no problem.
I appreciate it. You don't slip down on the ice up there, and
No.
and be careful. Don't go missing.
No, I don't plan on it. They've had plenty of chances to take me. They never have, so I think I'm,
Yeah.
at least in my area where I go, I'm good.
You know your spot.
I do. And, here in Lower Michigan, you're not too far away from houses, but again, they could do whatever they want with you. But I feel pretty confident.
Alrighty.
Real quick, how do people view your stuff? You got a YouTube. How do people find your evidence and your videos?
I have a YouTube channel. It's you can just look it up under Greenwave FB 2010. And I have a blog site that's called The Davis Report. And you can find that at thedavisreport.wordpress.com. A lot of stuff there. And then I have my Facebook page. And if you want to friend me and view my page, I'm more than willing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I hope to have you on soon again.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, I hope everyone had a good time. And we'll be back next Saturday with a new guest. And I'll be posting that shortly. So everyone have a good night.
See you later.